Hello and welcome to Plugin Along, a stream dedicated to LOTRO plugins. Last time on Plugin Along, we did a few last-minute to-do items for Festival Buddy 2 plugin and then released it. And that included all of the midsummer updates and that quick guide that Little Redhead was showing off on her stream. Today, we're going to start looking at the Hytbold Assistant plugin by Galuhad. It was last updated in 2013, and I have some ideas for an update. As always, feel free to jump into chat with your thoughts and questions. And in the meantime, let's move some windows around. Ah, my goodness. So something went screw with my camera setting, and I'm having to fix it. But that's okay. We'll fix it live here. Camera. Now, is it a filter or is it a transformation? Here, let me go back to this other one and go check out my filters. It is not. Okay, so is it a transformation? Yeah, let's use the snipping tool and grab a little bit of that. And then come look at here. And go look at the snipping transformation. Apparently so. Cool, that'll at least do it. I'm uncertain what happened to my camera setting, but good enough, I suppose.
Just like the mayor.
Exactly, just like the mayor of what Frostbluff?
Yeah. Winter home.
Winter Home.
In Frostbluff.
Okay, so I think that's everything worked out. Okay, so what is the Hytbold plugin? Well, if we come into the plugin manager, we have the Hytbold Assistant. We can see its little symbol is the tokens of Hytbold, and if you load it up, it is a couple of things. Hytbold. It is a window that will show you your progress in the rebuilding of Hytbold. You can manually check these off. You should also be able to have them automatically detect when you complete an item. We'll go play around with that in a little bit. It shows you how much these things originally cost, although now instead of costing 5, I think everything costs 1 to do. And so the rebuilding of Hytbold is a lot easier than it once was. There's each of the sections of Hytbold, so you can track your progress on all of them. And there's also a way to look at each of the armor sets for each of the classes that existed in 2013. So if we come on over to the Minstrel, we can see that there's armor of the Hytbold, Scald, Song Protector's armor, and armor of Resolve. And these are interactable, so I can link them into chat, probably. It's not linking into chat, but I'll have to play around with that. Maybe we're missing something, because you can do that in the Festival Buddy, so we'll play around with that. Let's make a note here. Other, right-clicking, sharing into chat from the equipment screen also seems to not work. Cool. All right. Well, we'll come back to that. So you can at least see what each of the sets is for each of the classes out there. Now I'm curious with the rework that they're doing on classes now, with some of the classes making the yellow lines more of a utility line, and so you are either speccing into red or blue, and also picking and choosing from yellow. I'm curious if they've done any changes to the equipment from Hytbold. I assume not, but I haven't looked. Okay, so some of the things I want to do are inspired by the Festival Buddy plugin, which is to add some assistance to some of the quests. Now, when you're rebuilding Hytbold, you get a wrapper quest aiding the Eastern Net, and you also can pick up quests at each of the 4 hub points for East Rohan. Now, East Rohan is the Wold and Norcrofts and Sutcrofts and Entwash Vale, everything east of whatever this river is here. And Entwash Vale includes a little bit into the east of Fangorn, but not all the way into the Entwood, I think. Right, because that's western. So we have Wold, Norcroft, Sutcroft, and Entwash Vale. And in each one of those, in the Wold you have Harwick. In the Norcroft you have Cliving. In Sutcroft you have Snowborn. And in Entwash Vale you have Aworth, I think? Aworth. Those are the hub locations for each of the regions. And at each of those you'll have around 10 to 13 quests that you can pick up. Now, normally, when you're doing Aiding the Eastern Met, as you complete quests, you increment Aiding the Eastern Met. Once you've done 5 of those, you can no longer do any more quests for the rest of the day. But you can abandon Aiding the Eastern Met after you pick up these quests, but before you complete any of them. So, at the moment, you are able to complete all Aiding the Eastern Met quests every day, if you so desire. That's about 60 quests. Each one of those gives you 1200 reputation and 10 tokens of Hytbold, or 11 if you are using the Fateful Toolkit from the Fate of Gunvad expansion. And those tokens can be used to rebuild Hytbold, barter for armor, and you can also barter for additional reputation. So if you are struggling to finish the reputation with one of these factions, you've done everything in the Wold, but you're still at ally instead of kindred, then you can, well, just doing these quests will give you 1200 each, but you can also turn in tokens of Hytbold for more reputation. 5 tokens get you another 1200 with the faction of your choice. So after a couple of days of doing that, if you do all of the quests that you can easily get to kindred with all of the factions and rebuild Hytbold and have enough tokens left over to barter. But some of the quests are more straightforward than others. Let's go ahead and, nope, thank you. String some of that down. For instance, if you do the Defense of Harwick, Rain of Arrows, and the Defense of Harwick, the Assault, those are pretty straightforward. You go out, you call down some arrows, you defeat some baddies, you come back in, you turn them in, done. And some of them are a little bit more abstract. But each of the 4 hubs acts in a similar way. One of the givers will give you pairs of quests that you go off into a public instance and complete. Usually one of them is defeating enemies, and one of them is doing some sort of a gathering. Maybe you're collecting mushrooms, maybe you're picking up frogs, maybe you're freeing soldiers from cocoons, something in that area, and also defeat things in that area. One of the givers will have a defeat mounted enemies, which is very good for advancing your defeat mounted enemies in the Eastern Net Slayer deed. And it's a good chance to practice being on a war mount or chasing them down on foot if you prefer. Now, as a guardian, I have the worst of both worlds because I don't feel very competent on a war mount, and I also don't have a bunch of ranged things to just take down mounted enemies, compared to my minstrel, which is my regular character, where I can just shout at things at a distance and it doesn't matter that they're on mounts. But my minstrel hasn't gotten to Hytbold yet, so we're doing it on my guardian. So one of them will send you off into a public instance to defeat mounted enemies, and then the third one will have random things, or maybe more thematic things that you do in and around the town. For instance, here in Harwick, one of them is hobby horse. You get on a hobby horse and you race around town. You have to get to each of the locations before time runs out. So once you make a circuit of the town, hooray! You can play Rohirrim and Bandits with the children, which is basically tag, with the complication that the thing that you are tagging them with has an induction bar, so you have to pace it so that you start that bar before they run too far away from you. And finally, Dress Up. The Dress Up quest, which is the one I wanted to talk about today, has the basics of look at the model. There are pieces of gear on this model. There is a headpiece, or in this case, the headpiece is no headpiece, so that's one of the options. There is shoulders, there is chest, there's gloves, there's pants, and there are shoes. And this dress model is wearing a piece from 3 different sets in each of those locations. So what was that? That was head, shoulders, chest, gloves, pants, and shoes, each of the 6 locations. The only thing that they're not wearing is a cape. So we just have the 6. So the objective is figure out which of the 6 they are wearing, so that when you go and pick boxes in Hytbold, you can figure out that, oh yes, I am wearing the same thing. Bring yourself wearing that same thing to the dress-up model, and you get credit for it. You don't have to do them one at a time. You can go get each of the 6 pieces and then come back. But this is made more challenging in that the contents of the boxes do not seem to be fixed. That is, wherever you find these particular shoulders, the location of the shoulder box is always the same, but which shoulder box contains which of the 3 possibilities seems to change. And it's hard to track whether that's changing daily, changing every time you look in them, or what, because there's only 3 options, and so, flip a coin kind of thing. The chance of it being the same piece twice in a row is actually pretty good. The chance of it being the same thing 3 times in a row, not so much. But the chance of you finding it in your first 2 boxes, really good, right? So either it's the first one or it's the second one, and the chance that you have to wait until that 3rd box, it's pretty low. So one thing I want to do is have an easy way to kind of record what is the dress-up model wearing. I'm thinking like a little display that lets you cycle through the head, the chest, the gloves, etc. Via some sample images that I've put into the wiki. And then once you've recorded that, I want the plugin to eventually notice when you have put on the corresponding pieces, so we can mark it off that you've done it. And eventually I would like a map of town that shows each of the locations. And eventually I would like that map to hide the locations that correspond to pieces that you've already gotten the correct one for. And maybe even also be able to remove locations by clicking on them or something. So that you can just go to the boxes, the nearest box that hasn't been eliminated yet. I think I'm going to get inspiration from the roving threat plugin for that. And on the one hand, is a very silly amount of time to spend on a very silly quest. But on the other hand, this quest could be like a 1-minute quest, maybe a 2-minute quest. You just pick it up, run around Hytbold, done. And every time I do it, I feel like I spend 15 or 20 minutes on it. I think it can be streamlined. And I think I am the person to do it, because I care. So that's what the focus of this plugin, this stream is going to be for today, and however long it takes to get a working plugin that does that. But because the Hytbold plugin is already here, I think I want to incorporate it into this plugin instead of rolling it into something else. The Festival Buddy plugin seems like a natural choice, but Hytbold isn't really a festival, and I want to work outside the constraints of that system. So I'm going to incorporate it into the Hytbold Assistant somehow. The Redhead says, completely off topic, does the Lua data have access to the /played information? Great question. So on the strict answer, if you do /played, then the output of /played is put into the standard chat channel, which is what we have going into plugins here. We have standard and we have error. So plugins can read anything that comes into chat, and this is a very formulaic thing. So a plugin could look at the standard chat channel and look for a string that begins with, in the English client, you have been playing for, : and it could parse the rest of this, save it off, do whatever you want with it. So in the strictest sense, yes, if you type /played, a plugin can see the information that comes from that. But in a more general sense, no. A plugin, to my knowledge, does not have access to your played statistic without you doing the /played command. The more obvious place to do that, if we were to look at the API, would be probably somewhere in the Turbine or the Turbine.gameplay. But Turbine.gameplay is really about like the character and stuff. So in Turbine, we could look in Engine. Does Engine have anything? Well, we have get game time, and we have get date, get local time, get script version, but none of these are get played time. So we could hunt around, look for something else, but I think the answer is probably no. But plugins can pop up a thing that says click this, and if you click that, that makes the /played command appear, and then the plugin can parse that. So a plugin can get you most of the way there, but I don't think, on the face of it, a plugin can look at /played without you clicking on something or typing something. The Redhead says, okay, I was curious. I got to thinking about which of my characters have logged the most hours. Now, it would be very possible to write a plugin where you mark it to automatically load. When you load, it could have a button in the middle of the screen that says click me. You click it, and it causes /play to happen and logs that information and then hides itself. And that's all it does. You log in, it says click me, you click it, done. And that would be a way to just, anytime you are on a character, you just update that information. And then, of course, you could have the plugin have a way to put that data together in some way that is helpful. Maybe a bar graph. Bar graphs are fun. Or a histogram. You get enough of those entries over the course of a year or two. Maybe be interested to see which one of yours are growing in which direction. But of course, that only solves the question of how long have you played that character up until now. If you then play it for another 3 hours and then log off for a month, that doesn't get captured in that method. Anathalos says, best for that is to use LOTRO Companion. What an interesting idea. LOTRO Companion is a great third-party program that you can use to help gather information. If we go ahead and pull this one up and go to Schildwacht, let's see if we can see that information. Where in here might I see how long? Edit? No. We can see the import dates. Notes? Nope, that's a freeform field. In-game time might be what we're talking about here. There we go. So, again, this is a... Nathalos has pointed out you can add the column in the main window as I've just done. So this is a not up to the minute kind of thing. You have to have imported your character for this to be up to date. And in order to import your character, you have to log in with your character. So if you're the kind of person who cares about this information, you might have a Saturday morning ritual where you log into your character and do an import. Log into the next character, do an import to refresh those kinds of things. Let's see. Some of my main characters, Tidlos has done almost 3 months of in-game. Let's see. Athel, 1 month. That was over on Honor. Affadil, my main here on Treebeard, is 1 hour behind being the maximum. 1 hour behind Tidlos. Excellent. So I will beat that coming... Oh, actually, I haven't done an import in a while, have I? So I'm sure that's more by now. Yeah, I haven't done an import in 10 days. Definitely have a new record there. And everything else is in the days. Now, I gotta say, as far as freeform columns goes, this could be improved upon. But as just a high-level overview, it's fine. We're just looking for that M. Anything that has an M has been played a lot. Awesome. So, yes, you can do this. It won't update live. You do have to import yourself. So it's going to trail potentially. The Redhead says, yes, that's what I was noodling on. Have our Treebeard characters passed our Bombadil or Evernight characters? Yes, probably. Mine have. Although I do a lot of plugin development with Affadil just standing there. So it's entirely possible that, well, Affadil has technically seen more screen time than Tidlos. Perhaps Little Redhead's characters have not. She stands around less for hours on end coding than I do, strictly speaking. Okay, so we've got the Hytbold Assistant window here. This is the main window. We've got the Armory window as well. We've got an ability to switch between characters, and anyone who's used the D-Tracker plugin is going to recognize a lot of the bones of the UI in Hytbold Assistant because I was heavily inspired by how that works. So we're going to go ahead and add a button in the top right to open up a quest window. We're going to make a quest window, and we're just going to, for now, the quest window will just be for the dress up model, but we might go ahead and have a drop down at the top for selecting what quest, and eventually we could even hook that up so that when you accept a quest, it goes ahead and loads that up or something. But for now, it'll be pretty bare bones. So before we started the stream, I went ahead and took a screenshot of the quest icon in the caret menu, which is just a ring on a black background. And I went ahead and made an icon, both a normal icon and a rollover icon for about the same size as this armor icon. So we're going to get started with that. Let's take a look at it. All right, can we see these things? Not in there. All right, so the normal one is with the ring, the hover over. I just changed the opacity a little bit and thought good enough. We'll see. Okay, so how do we get that button to show up? Let's actually go ahead and do a commit, added quest icon files. So that's the source files and also the images themselves. And we'll go ahead and just accept that to do file change as well. Now, one of the things Hytbold Assistant probably doesn't have is an options screen. In the plugin manager. All right, so system, plugin manager. If we come in here, options, there are no options. We are almost certainly going to want some, if nothing else, for testing purposes, for the accepting and completing of quests, and for... That's probably going to be the big one right now, but we're definitely going to want to put some options here, and we're going to take heavy inspiration from the Festival Buddy plugin, which also has to think about the accepting and completion of quest as well. So when we get to it, we're going to do a lot of heavy lifting there. Andre in chat says, hi, hello, welcome. We are looking at the Hytbold Assistant plugin, and we're going to go ahead and add a button here in the upper right next to the Armory button next. So, coming on in, we know, having looked at some of Galuhad's plugins before, that there's an images.lua file. So the armor back, let's see, is here. Okay, so we're looking at build over and build icon normal. Cool. So we want quest icon norm equals. Now, I wouldn't necessarily name them like this on the face of it, but since I'm kind of existing in this ecosystem right now, I'm not going to worry about changing. You know, I would probably spell out normal. I would probably spell out hover over, but that's okay. So we just need to go ahead and update the name of these things. So that was going to be quest icon instead of build icon. No worries. Quest icon. And now we have what we need, but where is this being used? So let's do a search for the build icon norm. Images is one place, the main window is another. Perfect. So we have the Armory button. Let's go ahead and make our quest button. So we can see we're using some global variables. That's probably not necessary. Let's see where else this is used. Nope, it's all used right here. So while I'm here, I'm going to declare that local and do the same thing with my new quest button. Andre says, oh wow. Well, if you weren't sure what was going to be happening on this stream, a lot of it is coding plugins or looking at the results of coding and wondering why didn't it work. So stay tuned for that. So they're using a prefix, what is it, and then the name of it. Yeah, it's fine. I would tend to do, if I'm going to include the thing button, I would tend to do that as a suffix. But again, it's all about blending in right now. Especially, this is the first time I've been in here working on this plugin. I want to feel how this plugin was written before I start being like, I want to change everything. I want to get a sense of the standards that this plugin is using, the customs and practices. Okay, so really we want to do everything this button is doing. And if we're about to do a bunch of copy pasting, it wouldn't hurt to have a function. So let's have a function for placing, here, let's bring this up here, placing a button up here, a button along the top border. And for that, we need a function make top border button. And we're going to need to pass things, but we don't know what it is yet. Let's see what the code would do. So local, and in this case, we're actually going to rename that just to button. Great. All right, so we've got our button. We need a parent control. We actually don't need that because we know we're making it on the top border here. And this wmain when parent is a global variable. So that is an optional thing. I'm actually going to leave it off for right now, but that is a variable we could pass in to say who owns this. Andre says, and is this legal? It absolutely is. We are using the LOTRO Lua API, the programming interface for telling LOTRO how we want things to work. So in this case, the API is downloadable from, the documentation is downloadable from various places. And LOTRO itself has a plugin manager. If you go to the system menu, the plugin manager, it was already open just underneath that window. And it'll show you what plugins you have installed and whether or not they are loaded. And in this case, we have Hytbold Assistant, Pets, Picker, and Rich, and Hytbold Assistant is loaded. Well, not a guarantee. The fact that I am streaming on the official LOTRO stream channel over on twitch.tv is encouraging as to whether or not this is allowed. Okay, so we're going to skip passing in the parent, but the position. We want the left location of it. And that's going to be passed in as the width of the window minus 80. Andre says, I want to play the game. I'm informing myself to play it with my friends. Absolutely. Lord of the Rings Online is free to play in that you can download it, create an account, create a character, jump into the game without ever spending any money. There are things that you can buy in-game for in-game currency called LOTRO points. That we pop up in the LOTRO store here in-game. There's really a couple different types of currencies. The basic one is LOTRO points. So if I were to go to the sales here, Ceremony Rift Defender's Breastplate, awesome. Normally 295 LOTRO points, now 206 LOTRO points. LOTRO points can be purchased for real-world money, but they're also awarded to you by completing in-game objectives, mostly deeds and a few other places. So for instance, when I completed Deeds of the Wildwood, bad example, when I completed the Barrow Downs, which was a deed in Breland, that came with 5 LOTRO points. And it is normal for a deed to award anywhere between 0 and 20 LOTRO points. As Steady Eddie points out in chat, all the content up to level 90 out of 140 is free also, which can take you into Gondor. Not sure if you can go all the way to Mordor without spending any money to unlock any of the quests, but you can get very far. If you're the type of person who's here for the story, there's a lot of it. Agartha points out, the plugin API doesn't allow botting, making network connections outside of the game, or access to the local file system. It's a fairly limited sandbox. Absolutely. Agartha corrects, it has limited access to the file system, so just the plugin data area. Yes. So yes, plugins, for instance, as I'm writing a plugin, it does not have access to the LOTRO store. It can't tell how many LOTRO points I have. It can't spend them. It can't do any of that. Anyway, so most in-game purchases are made with LOTRO points. LOTRO points can be purchased for money or earned through in-game play. And your LOTRO points that you earn in the game are bound to your account, not to any particular character. So some people will actually make a character, run through a bunch of deeds to get a bunch of this in-game currency, delete the character, and make a new one and do it again. Because some of the low-level things, like running around in the Shire, just aren't that difficult to do. And so you can do them quickly. You can build up a few hundred of these LOTRO points, delete the character, do it again. Some people do very well with that. I have a little bit more disposable income and a little less free time, so I don't mind occasionally spending some real-world money on some LOTRO points. And because I'm a monthly or annual subscriber to the game, so I pay, I think, $8 money a month, I also get 500 LOTRO points per month just for a thank you for doing that. So there's numerous ways to get LOTRO points. When you have them, you can spend them in-game for content, you can spend them for cosmetics or things that make your character or account better. All sorts of things. But the fundamental thing is it is free to try it out, and things that you buy are not necessary to play the game for a long time. They are quality of life improvements. Okay. That being said, I'm not a spokesperson for SSG. I'm just a person who really enjoys the game, and I appreciate how much of it you can do without spending any money. So don't feel like I'm a salesperson. I'm just trying to communicate what you can do. All right, so we've got a left position. We're going to use that instead of temp width here. And the height of it, I think, is fine to be 3 pixels down from the height of the window, so that's good. Button set size, I think we're going to assume all of our buttons are the same size. That will be visually nicer. But Mel says LOTRO isn't pay to play, but it can be pay to flex, or maybe play to flex. Yeah, so one of the classic things is in Lord of the Rings Online, like in many MMOs, the amount of things that you can carry is limited, and you can expand how that space, that inventory space, up to a maximum of 135 spaces, 5 spaces at a time, I think. And that's a thing that applies to every one of your characters. So anytime you expand your inventory space, every character of yours now has a bigger inventory. For me, that's incredibly useful because I don't like having to think about, oh, are my bags overflowing? Oh, I need to go to town. I need to deal with that. Pulls me out of the gameplay. I much prefer to just let it build up, and at the end of the day, cool, I'll go fix that. Yes, there is a flex command. Wah. Andre says, I have a question. Is it true that the Steam version has bugs? I think you're saying more bugs than the version on the official page. In general, Steam is launching the exact same executable on your system. And even if you are launching it through Steam, you can also launch it through the launcher. So the game itself comes with its own launcher. You can install it through Steam, but you still have access to this launcher, I think. And the underlying game is exactly the same. There are a few edge cases where that will come out, though. And one of them is for some period of time, possibly still, Steam players cannot use the in-game store. They have to use an external browser. Or maybe they cannot use the external browser. They have to use the in-game store. Not sure. There's something going on there where some part that is less of the core game and something that's on top of it, like this LOTRO store, is not working quite right, or was not working quite right. Since I don't use the Steam launcher, I'm a little disconnected from what is currently an issue, but the core gameplay is exactly the same either way. Also, SSG have talked about one of their goals is to update the LOTRO store, and fingers crossed, when they do that, whatever issue may or may not be affecting Steam will resolve itself. Okay, awesome. Agartha says they have to use an external browser. It's because of an issue with the Steam wallet. Thank you for confirming I had some of that correct. So it may be that if they're able to redo the LOTRO store, that problem will be addressed as part of that. but I think we are well far away from any implementation details. They were just musing on things that they want to do. But no, when you're playing the game itself, everything is the same. LOTRO is interesting because, like many programs out there, it kind of embeds other things into it. So, this store here is probably an embedded browser that is looking at a web page instead of anything built into the game. It's a nice, fast, easy way to do it. You can do it external, you can do it internal. It's all identical, and that's great. But if you're launching with Steam versus the launcher, maybe now you have this little edge case of launching an external thing versus an internal thing. That's just a guess. I don't have any inside information on that, but I would guess that that's why that particular thing has an issue where the rest of the gameplay does not. Little Redhead points out, don't know about bugs, but fewer people play via Steam, so if you need help, there's a smaller pool to pull from. That being said, if and when you do have problems, go to forums.lotro.com. You can post questions there, and other active players in the LOTRO community might be able to help you. Okay, so we're making a function to make something show up on the top of the bar here. We've got to set parent, set position, set size, that's fine. Set blend mode. Oh, I don't like that. What we want to do is go ahead and use turbine.ui.blendMode. And then figure out which one of these is for. It was that first one. Awesome. Alpha blend. When in doubt, let's try to avoid what they call magic numbers as much as possible. Why were we passing a 4? Well, who knows? Why are we passing alpha blend? Because we want the alpha to blend. Right? It at least gives us a little bit more. Plus, using the the LOTRO API extension, we get this context, overlays the source over the destination, using the source alpha to interpolate between the source and the destination colors. Awesome. That's exactly what we want. Arthur, I did test unblended alpha. Yuck. Exactly. Now, there are a bunch of different options here. Alpha blend and none are like the two most common ones I've seen. Okay, so setting the background, we need to allow someone to pass that in. So we're going to pass in the image that is going to get used. And we need two of them. Image normal and image overlay. Actually, mouse over. Okay, so we've got our image normal. And another one, normal. We've got our image mouse over. Awesome. So that gives us our mouse enter and our mouse leave for free. Now, I'm just noticing sort of a race condition kind of issue. If your armor window happens to be right on top of this button, okay, we do have a leave getting fired. Excellent. There was something else that I was seeing that was causing problems, and I was reminded of that. Okay, so a mouse click, and then we need to know what is the table for our visible setting. So I'm going to actually, this is starting to get too long. Visible setting table. Hey, I got a cat. I wonder with all my camera editing, can we see a cat? No. I'll have to figure out what happened to make my camera not widescreen, because now we're deprived of catting. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, definitely need to make a note to myself. Figure out what went wrong with camera settings. Okay, awesome. Not a problem right now, though. So, we have a visible setting table. That is, what table are we going to find the .visible property for this button? So, visible setting table .visible. And that's all we need. So we didn't pass in that parent. We're going to assume this is a make top border button that we're always just doing it on the window. Awesome. We need that left position, the 2 images, and we need to know where the setting, the table setting is. Now, let's just test this out. So we need to come on over to where the armor was. And we'll make that with temp width -80. I'm going to actually start doing a new line for each of these parameters. It's just going to be easier to read. So the image normal, image mouse over, and the visible setting table, settings.armorWin. So if we do that, we should be able to just get rid of all of that, reload this plugin, and see exactly the same. All right, Hytbold Assistant is not in its own apartment. That means in order to unload and reload it, we need to unload all plugins. Now, it's the only plugin loaded at the moment, so that's not really a problem for us. And we're going to go ahead and reload that. And we still have the button, we still have a mouse over, we click it, we still get Hytbold Armory. Awesome. That makes me think that the click handler is incorrectly in that function. Let's go look at click. Oh, there it is. So we need clicking of oh, I wasn't thinking right. If the button is launching something, okay, right now we know both of these buttons are launching a window. And so let's go ahead and pass in something called a window setting table. And the window as well. That window is going to be armor. That'll teach me not to read this function carefully. And we want to go ahead and pass in W armor win parent. Okay, so that's the window and the window setting. Unload and reload. And awesome, now we're getting some errors. 231, attempt to index. Well, let's go look at the name of the thing that we were referencing. We really wanted that to be W armor win parent. Okay. Nuts. I didn't think about that. So the code in a callback, the click handler, in this case, is going to be referencing a thing that exists at that point. But at this point, it doesn't exist. And I'm guessing that's because the armor win is being populated at a different time. Let's look at where draw main win is being called, probably main.lua, awesome. And we can see draw armor win is happening after that. Now, there might be a circular reference here. If we look at the main win, we're looking at W main win parent. Does the armor win care about that? It does not. Then we can safely hoist this up, probably, and draw the armor win first, so that the main win can directly reference this. So, what we want is that W armor win parent to already exist, and we can do that in this way. If it didn't work, we could actually pass a function to return that, right, we could pass an anonymous function and in make top border button, we could go ahead and call that function to get the thing. And that would probably work. Because that's essentially what we were doing before, was defining our access of this to not happen until later. But for now, let's see if this works. All right, something in here, 238. Okay, there's stuff in main win that definitely seems to be something that main win is doing something that armor win depends on. So that's a check changed. Let's see. Update tooltips now. Refresh this. Where is that happening? Okay, it wouldn't hurt to hoist that up, the refresh token view, because it definitely seems necessary. What does refresh quest view do? I see. Okay, so refreshing the token view is heavily bound up with that main window, as is the quest view. Ideally, we would have a function to load this data so everyone would have access to it. So, well, we said that there was a workaround for this. Let's go see if we were right. So what we want to do is go ahead and pass a function, return WRN parent end, and make top border button. We're going to go ahead and resist the urge to space that out. So get window function is what we're calling that now. So get window function, set visible. There's an old saying about adding another level of indirection, solving a bunch of problems. There we go. Fundamental theorem of software engineering. We can solve any problem by introducing an extra layer of indirection. Possibly a little tongue-in-cheek, but it's exactly what we did here. We needed access to a thing. We didn't have it yet, so instead of passing the thing, we passed a function that gets the thing. And that buys us enough time that by the time that this function is executed, WArmor win main exists and is usable. So now that we have this, we can go ahead and do another one. So this is going to be the quest button. We're going to go ahead and maybe slide 120 over. We know the icon is 30. That gives us 10 pixels between them. And we want the, instead of build, we want a quest. We're going to still just return that armor win parent, though. We don't have anything better. And the settings armor win. It's going to do the exact same thing for right now. Okay, so we have a button. When we roll over, it does something. When we click it, it does something perfect. Okay, we've made a bunch of changes here. Let's go ahead and we're going to cut out the quest stuff for just a second. and then come on in and start making some commits here. So added quest images to images. Great. And then in here, what did we do? Well, this is everything we just talked about. This is the refactoring of the creation of that button. So instead of creating an inline here, we're just calling the function, and we get that function down here instead. Almost unchanged, and the big issue was wArmorWin parent. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and refactored code to make a button on top of main window. Awesome. Commit that, and then we're going to come back in here and added button with quest ring on it. Call back. It opens the wrong window for now. Okay, cool. What else do we have? Well, we need that settings. We need to go look at that. All right, the way the settings are built up in here is not friendly to navigation in Visual Studio Code. So we're going to come on into the globals file. This is a very normal thing for a Galuhad plugin to have. There's going to be a default settings, and somewhere in the code probably already exists a synchronization ability. That is, when you load the settings, if there's something in here that's not there, you will get whatever's in here. Let's take a look at that. In main, we have our saved settings, we got our temp settings, and then we merge in anything that's in the saved settings overwrites the temp settings. But if it's new in the default settings, that's the value you're going to get. Awesome. That's exactly what we want. So in default settings, we have a main win, we have an armor win. Now we're going to have a quest win. Oh, that reminds me. We are going to need to convert all of these tabs to spaces. Convert all tabs to spaces. Now, that's not a commandment from on high, but that's a very personal opinion. I much prefer spaces to tabs. We can see here all of these are tabs, not spaces. And it's consistent, I will give it that. But it does not work for the way I want to work. Okay, so armor win, we can see we need to update this. That is going to be quest win. We already have a visible, an X, and a Y that are defaulted to something, and that's fine. So we can go ahead and swap that in. And the only thing we're missing is our quest win parent. Now we can go ahead and go make a new file here. And this is going to have the same naming scheme. So we had main win, we had armor win, we're going to have quest win.lua. Okay, since we already have a secondary window, I'm going to use that as inspiration for how we want to code this. There might be peculiarities of the main window code that we don't want to inherit here. This is not what I would call object-oriented way of writing it. There's no class being used here. It's a collection of functions and data, but it's at least consistent, and we'll keep with that for right now. So we want a function draw quest win, and we already know we want to call that from our main. Okay, draw armor win, draw quest win. Perfect. All right, so there's a use of temp width and temp height here. I've seen it before in a Galuhad plugin. I'm not sure why it's called a temp width. I'm going to continue doing it, again, to blend in to the existing coding style. But in my world, that would just be a width or maybe a window width, right? That's what we're representing here. But I could imagine if one was especially planning on making these windows resizable, that would at best be initial width. But we'd also be loading these values from the save details. So yeah, I don't like temp width and temp height, but that's okay. All right, what is set initial view? Oh, okay. Yes, don't need to care about that right now. Main parent window to hold all the elements. Perfect. So that's going to be w quest when parent equals. This is a turbine.ui.lotro.window. And we want to call all these things. In fact, we can just copy that. And just fix up the name. Okay, so we have a set size, temp width, temp height, set positions. We already know that we're using QuestWin as our settings bucket. And this is the Hytbold quests. Now this is not a localized string. We probably want to do that at some point. How about now? What's going on in our language strings? All sorts of things. Bring and get string function. All right, all sorts of to-do items that I'm thinking about. I tossed the question out to Galuhad. Is like, how do you feel about a Hytbold plugin 2? This is such a niche plugin. I feel like the total market is like 5 people, but I'm thinking of a lot of changes. So just putting out a patch is like, that's a lot of work for a patch. Okay, so we've got our localize name of Windows. Okay, cool. So we'll eventually have something for that. Position text visible and on screen. Make sure it's not off screen, obviously. Anything else that we want to hoist over from the armor win here? Right now, I don't care about anything that's in there. He's using custom backgrounds. I'm not worried about it right now. Ugh, that blend mode of 4. He's populating with a bunch of stuff. Not worried about it. So I just want a window to appear, and we're going to go ahead and use that in our button here. We're going to return the QuestWin parent. Okay, unload, reload. Already some errors. Attempt to call draw QuestWin. I did not include that file. Let's go ahead and come up to the imports. We want to come in, import, Galuhad, plugins, Hytbold, and that is the QuestWin. Awesome. So we can open and close the armor. We can open and close. We can see that we're missing a activate call somewhere. Okay, we can see there's a visible change that we want to go ahead and emulate as well. All right, so QuestWin, visible changed. If it's visible, then activate. Set class, what an interesting idea. That doesn't apply at all. Awesome. And this will okay, at least comes up. Okay, why is it visible though? So, set visible, QuestWin visible. Of course. Let's go ahead and find those places where ArmorWin cares about its visibility. Probably an onClose function that we're missing. Yep, window events closing. So let's go ahead and hoist that as well. Position changed and visible change will take the lot. All right, and this is going into QuestWin. Awesome. So that should let us move it and close it, and that will be persisted. Awesome. But we can see we're getting that activate, which brings the function to, the window to the front here. So even though I just clicked on that back window, the quest window is going to be on top. Perfect. As far as such things are. Okay, so we have a window. Let's go ahead and save these changes off, make sure there wasn't anything I missed. We're going to go ahead and say added quest win to settings. Awesome. And then we want to go ahead and added shelf of quest win. All right, so we're using quest win here, and quest win, and quest win. Great. Okay, so we have a window. It's probably a good idea to plan on supporting more than one quest. So the first thing we need at the top is a drop-down with the list of quests that we support. Right now there's just going to be one, dress up, and an area that is loaded when we change quests. So, what is that going to look like? Well, we can see we already have a drop-down in the main window. We have drop-downs in the armor window. So using this drop-down, even if we don't know how to use the drop-down, we can look and see what is the code already doing for this drop-down. So let's do that. We can expect that it's prefixed with dd for drop-down. And we can see dd character equals dropdown.create. We're passing in something. What is get alt names? It is a table, which is using table.insert, so we can expect 1 equals something, 2 equals something, 3 equals something, that kind of a setup. And we're passing in a default. Awesome. Okay, so let's go ahead and function create quest drop down. Okay, so create quest dropdown. We'll just call that. And in here, we'll go ahead and say local. Is it local? It's probably local. Let's see. Where else is this used? Nowhere. Great. Very cool. So it's not being used anywhere else, so we can definitely declare it as a local and not pollute our namespace anymore. dd quest equals, and we're doing a drop down, create, and this is, we're going to pass in something, but for now, just for an experiment, we're going to just pass in 1 equals, Made at Night says, ooh, scripting, what's afoot? We are making modifications to the Hytbold Assistant plugin in Lord of the Rings Online. And also hello. And so what we've just done over the past little while is go ahead and make a function for making these buttons. Made a button that opens up this window, and this window is where we're going to have an assistant for, eventually, the dress up quest of the Rebuilding Hytbold quest line. So we're going to go ahead and say dress up, hyphen, yeah, dress up. And we are going to go ahead and pass in the default selection in this dropdown. Now, we're hard coding this. Eventually, of course, we'd want more than one thing. But right now, we just want a dropdown that exists. We can go ahead and lift these other things that we're going to want here. So, obviously, it's not dropdown character anymore. It's dropdown quest. We are setting the parent to the quest window. The width, sure, that's fine. Why not? Setting the position, let's go ahead and fix this. Instead of temp width 2, we want get width divided by 2. Now they do minus 100, which is interesting, but we could just say local drop down width equals 180. And we can, this makes me think that once upon a time that was 200 because we're subtracting 100. Better to go ahead and say the width of that divided by 2. And that way when you change the width of the drop down, it stays centered. We have a height here as well. A position. We don't want to be nearly that far down, but let's start with like, I don't know, 30 and see how we feel about that. And we have an item changed callback. Not going to do any of that. But just so we know it is happening, turbine.shell.writeLine, and we'll say item change, well, quest changed, exclamation point. That way we at least know it's hooked up. But since there's only the one item in the dropdown, not sure what it's going to do yet. Unload, reload. Okay, awesome. 30 was almost exactly right. I feel like I want a pixel or two between that top border and there we go. Okay. Then when we go ahead and select, we can see quest changed. Everything is hooked up. Awesome. We only have the one quest. That's okay. So function load quest. Quest name. Okay. So what we want to do is call that load quest. Now, item changed, this is a callback, right? It's probably going to pass something. Item changed. It is not. All right, well, that's the neat thing about plugins is you can dig into the code of libraries and figure out what's up. So dd quest, quest get. How do you get the selection? Get text. Okay. Okay, so we're going to load quest. And we're going to pass in the get text of that. And so we still want that same thing. We still want to know that we're doing something before we actually start doing it. So we're just going to say that we're in the load quest and we were past that. So load quest dress up. Perfect. Okay, so we now have a dropdown. There's only going to be one thing for right now. It's very hard coded. We have a load thing. Now we need an area to work with. And so, for this, we need an area. So we need create quest area. And in this, we're going to go ahead and create, within the quest win parent, we're going to create a new control, and that's where everything else is going to be. So local quest control equals, and yeah, I'm good with that, equals turbine.ui.control. And always parent your thing. Set parent is that. That's why I brought it on over. So we want to go ahead and set the background color so that we can see where it is. Turbine.ui.color. Dark blue. Why not? And really, that should be enough. Perfect. We can see we have a control of default size. I'm going to say it's like 30 by 30. In default location, 0, 0. But it is being made. And now we want to go ahead and adjust that a little bit. So we want to set the position however far over and however far down. Now, as far as over is concerned, I'm going to go ahead and just pull this up in MS Paint and say, hey, what would it be like for it to start maybe 1 in here? And the answer is we would want to be 6 over, it looks like. All right, let's give that a try. So set position 0, 6. So, sorry, 6 is 0. I'm not changing the height right now. Okay, we can see we've come on in. Awesome. Other thing we want to do is say, hey, how far down are we to get below something? Let me actually make a new snip here. And what we really want to do is probably be below the filigree here in the upper left. So that's going to be, let's call it 50 pixels down. Okay. More importantly, we want to be underneath this drop down here. So let's go ahead and get quest control set size. And for the width, we want the w quest win parent get width minus these borders. So if we go ahead and say local left right border equals 6, then we don't need that magic number anymore, and we don't need to type it a second time. So as far as the size is concerned, we'll just throw out 50 for right now because we're playing around here. Okay, we can see we went too far because we meant to multiply left-right border by 2. Awesome. Okay, so we can see we're just inside the left and the right border here. Looks great. That's all the drawing space we have. Now, height. We can assume that we don't want to go past the filigree at the bottom, necessarily. Maybe at some point we do. But for right now, let's go ahead and take that into our old friend MS Paint. And just take a look in what's the size of that filigree at the bottom. And we can see 30 pixels is a pretty good number. So let's start making some variables for that as well. So we have the left-right border, we have local top border equals 50, local bottom border equals 30. And then we can go ahead and say our position is past the top border, our size, instead of 50, we want to make that the size of its parent, wQuest when parent get height, minus, we want to go ahead and minus the top border and minus the bottom border. And then definitionally, we are all the rest of the space. Awesome. Now, it might be with something like this that you'd want to go ahead and push back past that bottom filigree all the way to the bottom of the window and just say bottom border of 6, and then just try not to draw anything on there. Because whenever you're drawing here, we're on top of the window. So if I went ahead and skipped that bottom border, or said that bottom border was 0, then we're going to be on top of that filigree, not underneath it. And I just don't think that looks very good. So if we allow ourselves to draw in the middle area down here, and sometimes we might, then we have to make sure that we don't draw on top of that filigree, or it's just going to look, in my opinion, bad. But down here is a great place for buttons that are centered in the window that will consume that space. Maybe it's a simple close window button, right? Like something can go down here that makes it look like we're using the space, but that's never going to stretch out into those corners. I think it'd be really neat to have a version of the LOTRO skinned window that gave you a space between the background and these details, and like this is the control on which you can do stuff, and then it would go ahead and draw these corner elements on top of that. So even if we did spread out into there, like with a map or something, it wouldn't matter. Alas, to my knowledge, that is not available. Okay, so for the detail-oriented, we can go ahead and do a snip of this whole window now. And again, just bring it into something like MS Paint, doesn't matter. And we can just see, okay, we have our one border there. We are digging into that filigree just a tiny bit. Excuse me. So that would be worth taking into account. 32 pixels, that's a nice round number. Over here on the right, actually, it looks like, okay, 1 pixel extra. So we want that width, left, right, top border, times 2 minus 1. Let's give that a shot. Unload, reload. Oh, I said -1, but the width should have actually been a +1. Okay, so again, this is the kind of thing that you don't have to do, but sometimes you just really want to make sure it's going to look good. Because as soon as I turn off that background color, I am going to lose track of it. The background color is just there for right now, so that we know where we're drawing. Okay, everything looked great. We're going to go ahead and close those and see what we've changed. Like I said, I'm going to kill that color for right now, but we've got the added quest dropdown. That's going to be the quest dropdown here. And create quest dropdown. Okay, and added quest area. Cool. Stage that, and we're going to stage everything except that color, since that is a temporary thing. And then commented out the debug statement. Oops. Awesome. So we have a debug element for the color, and we have a debug element to make sure that we're where we think we should be. Actually, we're pretty confident at this point that we are where we need to be for the loading the quest. So we can go ahead and be rid of that. Okay. Removed debug statement. Perfect. It's kind of a long way to go to just get a window on which you can draw things, and there's ways to speed up this process. But when we're adding something to an existing plugin, it tends to be a lot faster, or existing element of a plugin, than when you're doing an all new thing. Adding a new quest to the festival buddy that already has the concept of quests and drop downs and all these things, way faster than adding that very first one. So, don't feel bad if it takes a while, I guess is the upshot of that. All right, unload, reload, and we can see, we no longer see where that quest area is. And I kind of want to. So we're going to have it, but it's not going to be in the code base. Okay, so we have the create the quest area, load the quest. And here's where we've got, I think there's not going to be any way to abstract this. Every quest is going to have its own unique, what are we going to do here? So I think we're going to say if quest name equals dress up, then function load quest dress up. Then we're just going to go ahead and pass it off to that, load quest dress up, end. And then we're done. And in load quest dress up, we can do the actual things here. Or would we... I'm going to change my mind 17 times on the design of this, so... Because my instinct would be to just create an area for each quest. Nuts. And it says, I'm learning a lot. I literally can't take my eyes off the screen. Oh, that's very generous of you. Thank you. From a design point, at the moment, there's only one quest that I'm considering. So adding in this drop down is just preparing for the future. But now that I have this create quest area, I'm not sure that I like what it does, which is to create a single control. Ideally, I would like a single control per quest, right? When you change your which quest is selected, you change what is visible. But it also would be nice to know, what am I going to do with this thing? And for that, maybe it's good to play around a little bit first. So I'm going to dress up area equals create quest area, and then dress up area set parent equals that thing. And then this is going to say return quest control. So create quest area is literally just going to create that. And we're going to parent it. And that'll be fine. Let's take a look and see what that looks like. Okay. Now, we're not seeing it firing off right away. So let's go ahead and do that as well. Okay, so when we create the dropdown, we'll go ahead and fire off whichever one is selected. In this case, just dress up. And now that we have an area, we'll go ahead and use it. I think there's going to be a lot of redesign if I ever support a second quest. So what we want to do is show each of set up pictures for each of the body parts. So what we want is a UI representation of the dress up quest. And so if you're not familiar with it, there are 3 different outfits, and so the dummy here, the dress-up model, might be wearing a Helm of the Winter. I wonder if I can make that any bigger. Nope. Helm of the Winter, a Helm of the Regal, or a Helm of the Balladeer, which seems to be nothing. So that's what they're wearing currently. Below that, they can be wearing the Shoulders of the Winter, Shoulders of the Regal, or Shoulders of the Balladeer. This one's wearing Shoulders of the Balladeer. So what I would like is either showing each of the options in the UI, and you just select which one, or better yet, I would like to have like little left and right buttons that you can toggle between, and it'll just slide back and forth here. Now these pictures were ones I took a long time ago. I think before I am done, I will probably try to create a human character with this look so that I can model each one of those and have it look like the dress-up model. But for now, we'll just use the ones that are in the wiki. Which I put in there a while ago. When was I working on this? September 2020. What a year. Fantastic. So 3 years later, I'm reaping the reward of already having these ready to go. So we have shoulders, we have chest, we have gloves, leggings, and boots. Awesome. So what we want to do is make each of these the right size relative to what we're doing, I guess. I don't know. I kind of want like the thing that pops up when all your equipment's damaged. I kind of want something like that. Let's go ahead and copy these images we're going to make a new template or something. I don't know. We're going to play around with it. So I'm going to make a new image here. This is similar to a program like Photoshop. This is the GNU image manipulation program. We're going to make a new area that we can work with. And delete that. And we'll start with head. Okay. Coming on down. All right, we have shoulders. All right, chest. All right, so that would be hand left. And we could just duplicate that. And then hand right. Bring that on over here. And then the layer, we just want to go ahead and transform that. Flip. Great. We want... And right now, this is almost me more kind of musing than anything. This is kind of just design ideas. So, legs. So the final one's probably going to look different in some major way. And feet. Okay. So. Obviously, there's a size discrepancy here. So when I go back and take screenshots, I'm going to be carefully positioning who's doing the screenshot, where's the person standing doing the screenshots to try and make this flow together better. But in the meantime, it's fine. We can just go ahead and say this chest piece is kind of the, well, maybe the legs are kind of the small one. Nope. Maybe we'll start with the legs as being kind of the authoritative size. What is going on here? Unfortunately, sometimes I start typing and I think I'm in the game and I'm in this program and it makes it confusing. There we go. Okay, so legs. All right, so if the feet go on top of there, then they are obviously too big. Let's try something like that. A little too small. Cool, good enough for this purpose. Same thing with the chest. Small feet. Same thing with the chest. We want to go ahead and move that on over here and start scaling it around. This seems like a lot of work. I think I'm talking myself out of doing this and instead just not even trying to connect them up. So if that's the case, then what we want to do is have a little section for each one of these, and they'll be completely standalone. It'd be neat if they could be all vertical each other, kind of like what you have in your character screen, but I'm worried there won't be enough vertical space for that. So let's go ahead and instead, let's just decide on sizes as we're working our way through this. So what we want is helmet. We're probably going to want a helper function to draw each of these things. But we're going to go ahead and write it out here first so that we can make sure it works and then pull it into a helper function. Local image equals turbine.ui.control. There's no special control for images. This is just the background of a control. Image, set parent. Cool. Image, we need to set background. And for that, we probably want to add these to our images area. So, quests equals, and in here we have dress up equals, and so on. We're just going to keep on nesting things. So we're at helm. So helm equals, and then winter equals regal. Regal equals, and Balardier. Awesome. Okay, so for each one of these, we can declare an image. And for each part, we can declare an image. So that'll just give us the 18 images. Okay, so that being said, let's do something less complicated than that. Let's come on in. Funny thing is, on one of my computers somewhere, the raw screenshots for all of these probably still exist. Okay, so let's imagine that we don't want to spend more than 100 pixels on this, probably less. What would 50 pixels look like? Oh, that still seems like a lot. 25 pixels? Oh, that was percentage. All right, 50 pixels. Let's say yes. Now, for images in game, we need. Oh, I bet that was a screenshot. Look at all that pixelation. Oh no, it was uploaded as JPEG. We need this to be a TGA file, and for that, a GNU image manipulation program is actually pretty good. So we're going to go ahead and image, scale image. This thing is going down to, let's say 50 pixels. And then we go ahead and export that. Okay, so we're in Documents, LOTRO Wings Online, Plugins, Galuhad Plugins, Hytbold, Resources. Now, we need some organizations. This is going to be Quests. This is going to be Dress Up. And this is going to be Helm of the Winter. Okay, Helm Winter. .tga. Okay, exported and done. We're going to do that for each one of these things. And again, once I get into this, I'll be recreating these. With a model that resembles the actual in-game dress-up model. Although I'm a little worried that they've tied that up like Stable Masters, where it might shift its appearance around, in which case this would not be a good idea. Okay, we're going to go ahead and scale that layer down to 50 pixels, 50 wide anyway, and go ahead and export that, and that is the Helm Regal. And finally, Helm of the Valor Deer. Cool. Layer, scale that layer, 50 wide, done. Okay, that at least gives us something to play with. So back here in images, we can see in our resources, in our quests, in dress up. So that's going to be, let's go ahead and make a new resource dir. That's going to be dress up dir. And that is resources / quests / dress up / and that'll be a little bit easier to manage here. So we're going to go ahead and say winter. Oh, these don't need to be tables. Awesome. That can be dress up dir ... and then whatever. And we happen to know that's helm winter .tga. So we're going to do the same thing over here. And for each one of these, we'll just update the name, Regal, and I'm going to get very good at spelling Valor Deer by the end of this. Showdown says, is there a way to watch this stream in full later? Absolutely. All of these streams are available here on Twitch as, I don't know if people pronounce it VOD or VOD, but either way, you can watch it video on demand later here on Twitch or also over on YouTube. So if one were to go over to the YouTube of the tube and search for Life Beyond the Shire, you'll find the Life Beyond the Shire YouTube channel where Little Redhead and I both post our videos, and you can just go to the playlist and find LOTRO Plugins. If you're looking for this specifically, starting all the way back at episode 0, and after today, it'll include, oh, I didn't actually include the one from last week. I will include this one, which is episode 99. So we've made it to 100 of these streams, which is wild. So you can find them over here on Life Beyond the Shire. So, Life Beyond the Shire, LOTRO Plugins playlist. Okay, there you go. I'll save that off for later. I try to, when there are links in the Twitch stream chat, I do try to go ahead and add those into the description for these videos as well. Yeah, so we can see links from stream chat. There was a link to Little Redhead's LOTRO Midsummer Festival Guide there, and a link at LOTRO's 2023. We called them out. Oh yeah, there's a link in chat, and someone was like, hey, that'd be really cool if they were also in the YouTube description, so super easy. Why not? Look at LOTRO's 2023. So, for those who haven't seen it, LOTRO Letter 2023 over on LOTRO.com has what they hope to do over the course of 2023. Okay, excellent. So now we have these images, we can start trying to use them. So setting the background images, we have quests, we have dress up, and we have helm, and we have winter. Awesome. Image set size. We're just going to say it's 50 by 50 for right now. Image set position. Actually, I don't care about that right now. And I just want to see this working. So, unload, reload. Cool, we've got an image. What we really want are, in my head, what I want are like left and right arrow buttons, similar to the character creation screen, I suppose, where you can just select between the 3 available options. And if that's what I want, maybe I should go steal that. So let's go to Bree. Showdown says, I know it's not going to happen, but would really like for them to expand the plugin system. On a recent stream with not scenario. Severlin, the I want to say executive producer of LOTRO. Anyway, he's up there in terms of decision-making ability. Said that they are interested in doing updates to the Lua system, but that it's not currently a higher priority than some of the other things that they're doing. So it's on their radar. And I think one of the problems is the kinds of people who work for them that would ever work on plugin updates are also the kinds of people who are heads down on helping resolve lag issues and other technical improvements like 4K, which they've also announced they want to do better support for, and all sorts of things. So I think it's on their radar, something they want to do, something we want them to do, but it's, one of those. I hope it comes. If it comes, I'll be glad to use it. But if it doesn't, there's so many things I can do with the current system. Okay, so what we're looking for are these buttons here. And when you have an in-game image like this, it's quite possible that you can go ahead and find that image ID and use that. But we can also just screenshot it, take it, and use it, and replace that later. Sheldon says, I know it was a hobby project for one of the former devs. Yeah, that's definitely how we've been told it started. And I would love to see it have a little bit more formal support. That being said, there have been updates to it since those devs have no longer been present, because when they add new classes like the Brawler class, we see those being added to the enumerations for what classes are available, for instance. So, there's been little tweaks here and there, but nothing like the attention that we would love for it to have. All right, so we can see this is a pretty basic looking button, and what we want is to take advantage of some transparencies that might be here. So let's go ahead and say right arrow. And let's take a look at this thing. Now we're seeing a lot of those blues that are coming in from this being, I assume that's the background color of this bar. And looks like we're not going to get away from that. That's okay. One of the things we can do is just sort of select things that are like this color and delete them. That's a little bit too much, so let's bring that threshold down. Let's see. Let's start with a threshold of 10. Well, that would certainly do it, I suppose, but it still feels a little rough. And when that doesn't work, one can always just do a free select, right? And say, okay, well, I know I want to delete like this much of the background. Don't know about all of it, but get rid of that. Now we've just selected something, so we're going to go ahead and invert that selection and kill that. And that gives us less to work with, less to have to worry about masking, for instance. So maybe we can bring that threshold down and say, what happens if I just select that? Wow, it just really wants to kill all of that, doesn't it? Threshold really far down. All right, knock it up a little bit. A little bit more. You know what? I'm going to say good enough. Okay, so love it. Let's go ahead and image, crop to content, bam, and that's our arrow, and we're going to run with that. Now, one of the problems of that, of doing this screenshot instead of grabbing that image ID, is that there's transparencies in that button. You can see that blue coming on through. So we're going to want to replace this eventually. In fact, ugh. There we go. All right, so we're going to crop to content. We're going to go ahead and save this out. So we're going to export this, first of all, as... All right, and sure. Right, arrow right, normal. And we're going to go ahead and flip this around and export that as arrow left. Now, there might actually be differences in how the left and right arrow buttons look, but again, this is just a quick little get us going kind of thing. Now, the other thing we want is the hover over if we can get it. So let's go ahead and do a 2-second delay so we can get into position here. And then we'll go ahead and take the hover over version of this. And let's go ahead and canvas size, let's make that bigger so we can play with that. And hover, awesome. Yeah, for someone who writes plugins, I spend an awful lot of time in image manipulation programs. All right, so we just selected, we're going to go ahead and invert that and get rid of everything else. Awesome. And then image crop to, nope, image crop to content. There we go. Okay, but we want to basically the same thing that we did before, and we can use this as a guide actually. So we know how big this is supposed to be. Canvas size 14 by 18. Great. We know this is supposed to be 14 by 18 also. So canvas size 14, 18. Resize that, which means we can go ahead and slide this on over, which means now we just have to worry about. Let's see, that was 3200%. Great. Slide that on over, and cool. So we just want to pull out the same pixels, essentially. So we're going to go ahead and using pretty low threshold here. Start with that and see what else did we miss. All right, time to clean this up a little bit. And again, I'm not worried about doing a perfect job of this because this is just a placeholder. I want it to be a pretty decent placeholder. Like, I don't want to like flinch when I look at it. Okay. Do we think that is good enough for our purposes? Yes. Actually, I'm a little concerned that this thing might have actually gotten a little bit bigger when it was hovering over. So we're going to go ahead and say good enough. Okay, so this is going to be our export as. This is the arrow left hover over, mouse over, mouse over. Absolutely. And Athalos says maybe using the proper image ID instead of screenshotting is advantageous in case they do a 4K rescale. I would be surprised if the 4K versions of the icons used the same ID. I would bet a small amount of money, let's say $1, that when they redo the images in 4K, those will have a new image ID. And my very limited knowledge of such things is that in systems like modern Windows, modern Apple, Mac systems, iOS, that an image is really a set of images where you have like the full one and then you have pre-rendered smaller versions of them. And so if you're not running at 4K, you're only running at 1K like I am, then you wouldn't even necessarily grab that 4K version. You might grab a smaller version of it. So like, given this image ID and this resolution, give me a thing. So yeah, the simple thing might be to load to slot in like image ID 7 is this thing based off of your resolution. So that would be a way to kind of transparently upgrade the quality of them. But I guess it wouldn't surprise me if they were new image IDs either, and all of the old ones just sat there, and then anything that's 4K compliant or higher resolution compliant might use a secondary system to look at images. I'm going to be very curious to see how they do that. But in the meantime, absolutely, I do intend to grab the actual icon at some point. But sometimes that can take a lot longer than I wanted to commit to doing right now. So this will be good enough for our purposes. Okay, and we're done. Discard. So we want to go ahead and make room for this. So we're going to go ahead and local left arrow equals, and here's where we want to take advantage of. We already have made a function that knows about hover over and clicking and whatnot. And so let's go ahead and pull that over. We're going to say make arrow button. And we need a location for it, so left and top, and direction. So that'll be left, right. And then we'll pass in a click function, and that'll be fine. Okay, so we're going to make a button. The position is going to be left and top. The size is going to be, I'm not sure what we made, but not large. Let's come on in. Documents, Lord of the Rings Online, plugins, Galuhad, Hytbold, resources, quests, and dress up. And then arrow left mouse over, image, canvas size, 15 by 18. Good enough for my purposes. So 15 by 18. Blend mode, awesome. Set background. All right, so local background equals, and this is images, this is quests, this is dress up, this is arrow. Oh, we haven't actually done the arrows yet. Awesome. Arrows. Might actually see placing these higher up. Like maybe this could be useful for something else at some point, but for now, this is fine. So we have left norm equals, and this is going to be, yep, dressceptor, and that's going to be arrow left normal dot tga. So we have a left norm, we have a left over, we have a right norm, and a right over. Okay. So for each of those, we just go ahead and grab those file names, no problem. Left over, we have a right over, arrow right normal, and that gives us each of those images. And when we get the actual image IDs, it'll just be trading out a path for a number. Once you have an integer in there, you can write it as a hex, that's fine too. You can see some of these are already doing that. And then setting this as a background, the control knows if it's a number, use that as a image ID, and if it is a string, use that as a path and try to load that file. So it's a very flexible structure. So we're going to go ahead and say local background equals dress up dot requests dress up arrows. That's what it is. Arrows dot, and then left norm. If direction equals right, then background equals all of that except right norm. End. And so, and we can even say background image normal, that would be fine. And then image mouse over, right? Local image mouse over equals all of that, except it's left over. And then all of that except it is right over. So we've got our left, we've got our top, we've got our direction, and then we just need the click function for all that. But set background, enter, leave, and all of that, and then set click function, we're just going to do whatever they told us to do. And then we can even, if click function is then call the function. That way, if it's nil, for whatever reason, you don't cause an error, you just don't do anything. Okay, so left arrow equals, and we're going to make an arrow button. And that takes 0, 0, left, and nil. And we're going to do the same thing with a right arrow, right, except we're going to position it at 60 or something, and see how that goes. Right arrow. Okay, back in the game, unload, reload. We can see we didn't actually parent the thing. That's going to be important. And so for that, we're going to want to go ahead and say dress up area. Awesome. So we have a right arrow. There's already problems with it. That's okay. We're going to go ahead and say this image needs to change. Image is set position. I'm going to say it's 20 over and 10 down or something. Just get it away from the edges. Awesome. We can see how those arrow buttons already are. Let's go ahead and bring these down. And we just need to spread those out a little bit. Andrew says, I'm at work, but I want to get home and download this game. Amazing. Yeah, I hope you try it out and have fun with it. Just be aware the initial download is large, and then I think they only roll patches into that download every so often. So the first thing that has to happen after you get it downloaded and installed and connected is it'll start patching to bring you up to whatever is current. And so be patient, right? Give your computer a little time to get that sorted out. And it'll when you launch, it'll ask, do you want to download the high-res textures? If your computer is at all modern, you probably want to say yes to that, but that's going to be your personal choice on how you like to play. Okay, let's move this image over a little bit, kind of manually center things. We can see there's a little trim of something on my right arrow. That's okay. But we can see also we can hover over these buttons and they give us that feedback that they're going to change. Awesome. So what we need to do, and this is probably going to be a good time to start wrapping up on this stream, but what needs to happen for this is we need to have the concept of 3 images where we can scroll right or left. And to make life easier for us, we're going to make a single control, or at least a single function that makes a control that has that concept, right? 3 images, and you cycle between them. So they're going to be in a table, in an array, basically. And you're going to cycle between them and loop back around to the start. So if you're on number 1, going right, we'll go to number 2. Going right, we'll go to number 3. Going right, we'll go back to number 1. And same thing for the left, but in reverse. And so we need a single control that has the concept of here's your 3 images, and you're going to make 3 image controls, left and right buttons, and that will determine which of those images is visible. And then we need 6 of those. And then we'll need some way to say which one is selected. But that's for another time. So, what have we got so far? We've got a quest window. We've got some sample images that we can throw in here. We've got some left and right arrows, the text, the images for which we need to source from within the game. But for right now, we can make do. And we have on the left here space where we're going to do our sort of a paper doll construction, where we're going to select the type of thing for each of these. Now, I'm not actually where I need to be for chatting about that, so let's go ahead and get ourselves back to Milestone Snowburn, and we can ride from there to Harwick. So, on the left, we're going to have room for each of the 6 locations, and eventually better screenshots, but these will be fine for now. That lets you select which of the 3 sets is active on each of the areas there. And then on the right, I would like to have a map of the space. So I'm leaving it this large so we can have a map of the space so that when you do a /loc command, it'll tell you where you are if you need that. And it'll be able to show each of the 18 locations and allow you to click it to say I've already collected it, and where it knows which ones correspond to which items. So when you pick up the right one, it hides the rest of them. And that'll be on the right side of this screen. All right, Harwick, thank you. Oh no, there's Riddermark. I'm going to ride right past it. Dress Up is probably the quest I think needs the most of this kind of a sort. Oh, Andre says, how much is it? Like 80 gigabytes or more? What a great question. Let me come on over to my program files. And, all right, so Standing Stone Games. When I take a look at this, I see 43 gigabytes. I'm guessing Bulwar, the test server is just about the same. So yeah, you should expect it will consume about 40 to 45 gigabytes if you download the large texture, high resolution files. And then it'll take up a paltry little bit more in your Documents folder. Documents, Lord of the Rings Online. It's more for me because that's where your screenshots get saved. So I have 300 megabytes of screenshots. My plugin data is pretty small. What else is big? 35 megs for plugins. My music folder. Let's see. Where's all that space going? All right, you got me curious. Nope, that's not the right one. Okay, where's all this going to? Cache. Oh, okay. There's 200 megabytes of cache data. Cool. There's 228 megabytes of screenshots, another 60 of screenshots to process. Great, what are you? Plugins. Okay. Oh, of course. I have Git repositories, and so those are going to take up some space. So, if you're ever curious, how is my disk space being used? I highly recommend this tool. It's called WinDirStat, WinDirStat. WinDirStat's home is here. And it'll give you a nice visual representation of what's going on. It'll also do breakouts by file type, so we can see the JPEGs. All of my screenshots are taking 300 megs. Obviously, it's up to you how many screenshots you take. Then all of my source control files are those. Okay, so cache files are most of those. Yeah, and then it just goes down from there. All of my music files are about a meg. Anyway, so this is really a nice way to visualize your hard drive space, because when you're talking about, my hard drive, I need to clean it up or I need to delete stuff, you want to start with the biggest thing. My screenshots folder is fully almost a third of all of the space that I'm taking up. So if I'm not addressing my screenshots folder, I'm missing out on a bang for buck kind of thing. And it looks like I have some PNGs of screenshots here. That's going to inflate the size a lot. Each individual screenshot from within the game is less than a meg usually. Even the largest one here is only a meg. But if you save them off using an external slimming tool as a PNG, obviously it'll inflate the size quite a lot. Triple the size. Fantastic. Okay, cache. You can probably delete your cache with no real side effect, except then it has to be cached again, so you're just kind of making work. So I wouldn't delete that unless you really feel the need. I wouldn't mess with any of this unless you really feel the need. All right, and then, oh yeah, skins. I have 100 megabytes of skin files downloaded. That's completely optional. Cool. All right. Well, curiosity is answered. Okay. Neat. Harwick is one of the 4 cluster points for the Rebuilding Hytbold quests. The quest givers are just over by the meat hall. Might be neat to have a little reference map in here. Like, where do you go? Okay, and the dress-up model is here. So yeah, in my sort of ideal world, I'd be looking at the dress model, and I would just adjust my model in the quest area to match it, and then I would run off and start gathering. Because that's the other problem, is just remembering what of each one of them. And I think if I did this quest every day for months on end, maybe it would just stick in my head which one each one looks like, and just be able to go do it. But no, I need my plugin to remember that for me. So, okay. Awesome. Well, this has been delightful. I think at this point we'll go ahead and wrap things up. Let's see. No other chat questions. Andres, I hope you enjoy things. Feel free to pop back again next week and let us know how it's going. There's lots of other streamers here on the LOTRO stream channel, and lots of people, well, some people anyway, streaming about LOTRO all throughout the week on their own personal channels as well. So you can find us here. You can find more community members on the forums and in game. There's a world chat channel where as long as you aren't spamming it too much, if you have a question like, hey, where do I find this thing? People are going to be really helpful about jumping in with answers. Though I will say, you will get a lot of benefit out of knowing about the LOTRO Wiki, which is at lotro-wiki.com. So if I wanted to know more about this dress up, or, aiding the Eastemnet quest, I can find. This is the deed and the associated quest and all sorts of information about it. So when in doubt, if you have questions about a quest or a deed or a mechanic, you can ask in world and chat and probably get an answer, but you can also go and look at the wiki. Showdown says, do you stream yourself? Yeah, right here. No. I have a personal stream channel, of course, but I rarely put stuff on there. I don't have a lot of time each week to do streaming or gaming, sadly. And so I figure might as well be here where more people might be able to find me and learn more about plugins in Lord of the Rings Online. Every once in a while, because of technical issues, I have to stream over there. And so, no harm if you subscribe to that channel. But if not, it's fine. Andrew says, do you guys have Discord? LOTRO, Lord of the Rings Online, doesn't have an official Discord server. They tend to ask that if you need help or are looking for that kind of thing, go to the forums. But there are several community LOTRO Discord servers. I think I'm in 3 or 4 of them when I have time to look at Discord. So there are unofficial community Discord servers, and there are a bunch of Discord servers out there for kinships. So if you get into a kinship in-game, chances are pretty good they'll say, oh, join our Discord server at blah, and that'll give you textual and voice communication with them. And yeah, neat, excellent questions. All right. Well, I think that's all we are going to cover today. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of LOTRO plugins. I do hope to see you here next week, and until then, keep plugging along. All right, bye-bye now.